studio with another guest. And we really talking about issues here that affects Africa, and it's quite impressive to see how many people out there who are fighting for the liberation of Africa, for the independence of Africa, in many different ways. And I know that we all have different solutions to African problems and want to create the Africa we want. Uh, but are we not different voices saying the same thing? Are we not different voices saying the same thing? And I've come across a lot of people who are talking about, I think this is what needs to be done. When you look at economic development in Africa, we are the poorest with many resources. We are the beggars with many resources. We are suffering, but still with many resources. I'm talking about, 65% of Africa is youth. We own over 60% of arable land in the world, but they give us food aid. I think we should be ashamed. We should look at this and be like, okay, what's wrong with us? We are educated enough. We have the scientists, we have the engineers. In fact, the engineers didn't come now. We had the engineers who actually built, when we look at the Great Zimbabwe in Zim, it was built without, all the knowledge that we have today. So what is going on? So now on Creating the Africa Wonder, I'm joining in by Mr. By Honorable. I don't like using the Mr. It's all English. So let's go. By Honorable Franklin Jones, who is a former U.S. Marine. He was a soldier, and at some point he was situated in Iraq. So if you see those things that were happening in Iraq and we were like, oh, what's happened? What is the U.S.? He is one of the problem that was in Iraq. So he was just there. So we are here to discuss the poor economic development in Africa. Is it white supremacy or is it bad leadership? Because everybody have been like, it's white supremacy, neocolonialism. You know what happens? They divided Africa, so now we can't pick ourselves up. It's been years after that. Why is Africa suffering? Welcome in studio, Mr. Franklin Jones. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's an honor to be on your program. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great stuff, great stuff. I see that you wrote, I want to start with something that I've been looking up online. I know I didn't tell you that I'm going to be asking you about this. The book that you wrote, The Matrix. I've seen some bits and pieces of what you wrote about the Matrix. So I want to understand what inspired you, what the reason behind writing The Matrix.
As I said, I was in the military. I was in the Iraq War. And while we was in Iraq, I witnessed the U.S. government brought in these PSYOPs units, that psychological operation units, to socialize the minds of the Iraqi people. Because while the army was able to win the war, they were not able to capture their minds without socially engineering it. So what I saw is due to the Iraqi people. I saw it done. We took over their media, took over the education, and we started socializing their minds to think in ways that benefits the U.S. government. Likewise, a value system that protects and serves the system of white supremacy is being downloaded into the African mind virtually every day. And the same thing, there are three ways to effectively brainwash an entire people: by what they're taught, by what they see, and by what they hear. Because in many cases, white society controls the education we're taught, the media images we see, and the narrative here. This allows them to indoctrinate a value system into our mind that protects them, and we don't recognize this. I'll give you an example. In Africa, I'm sorry, should I go on?
No, you can go on.
Okay, and for example, in Africa, there are many Africans who feel happy that colonization happened. They're happy the invaders came. In America, there are many Africans in America who are happy that slavery happened. They say slavery took us to the backwoodsness of Africa. The Africans on the continent say, I'm glad we have colonialism because it brought us to the backwoodsness of Africa. When the oppressed thinks exactly as the oppressors wants them to do, this is never coincidental. It's a deliberate design. The confusion among us, the division among us, is because a value system that protects and serves the system of white supremacy is being downloaded into the African mind. As long as the white man is controlling the education we're taught, the media images we see, and the narratives we hear, this allows him to control us, program us. And I'm gonna give you an example of how this can be used, is being used in South Africa. This is gonna be a touchy tone, so I probably shouldn't get into this one. The white minority in South Africa, if the white minority controls the media and there's a fear of the black masses turning against them, they can use propaganda to turn the collective aggressions of the black masses against other groups. Like if I, for example, was a white media publisher, newspaper controller in South Africa, and I was concerned about the massive black South Africans attacking me, I would put propaganda. I would tell them that the reason why you're not getting a job is because the expats coming in. The reason why you're not getting a job because expat from Nigeria and expat from Kenya, and you can turn the aggressions of the South African masses against those. And so we are continuously being programmed. And I believe that I know there is no fight more pressing that's necessary for the liberation of the Africans than overcoming the monopoly that the white man has over our minds, over our perceptions of ourselves. Around the world, in Africa, London, Canada, and America, there is this common theme among many of us Africans. And it is that many of us are self-loathing. We make negative generalizations about ourselves. And many of us have a reverence for Caucasians that is contrary to their brutal treatment of us throughout history. I don't know what my camera's giving. Now, this is not a phenomenon that around the world where you find Africans, you find them self-loathing, self-hating, divided, and having a reverence for Caucasians. It's not a coincidence. It is by design. And we must address how our minds are being programmed. This is a true science. And this science dates, you could go back to it's the Tavistock Institute of Human Behavior. If you research it, it calls itself applying social engineering needs to address modern problems. There is a great fear of black retribution that secretly exists among the white society due to their centuries of mistreating Africans and their exploitation of Africa's natural resources. This fear is particularly immense because their mistreatment of Africans continue indefinitely. Their exploitation of Africa's natural resources also continues indefinitely. The white society cannot last more than 3 years without Africa's natural resources. So So to do this, you have to develop a system. And here's why they have to develop a system. There's within the human psyche, whenever people are oppressed for long terms, whenever, their collective aggressions against their oppressors will continue to grow until acts of rebellion becomes inevitable, massive rebellion. There's only one way to prevent this. This is an inherent response within the collective minds of the human mind when you are oppressed for a long time. You follow me? The only way to prevent this is to turn the people's collective aggressions away from their enemies and redirect it against themselves. Our collective aggressions have been shifted from the white society and redirected against ourselves. If you stand up in a room and you start preaching, talking about white racism, there will be several Africans in the room who will attack you, who is more comfortable putting down his own people, who is more comfortable blaming his own people and have a reverence for whites. This is by design, which we have to address. The white man's monopoly over information allows him to program us, regardless of how intelligent a person may be. If it's possible to control the information that's fed into his mind, it's entirely possible to control what he believes. There is a global propaganda campaign designed to keep the African world divided. During the Carter administration, he had a political advisor, a social scientist, named Zabriskie, his first name. He wrote a memo that was sent to all of the State Departments. It says we must do everything in our power to keep Africans in the continent, Africans in America, and Africans throughout the diaspora divided, socially, economically, and psychologically divided. Keeping us divided protects the system of global white supremacy. Now, the problem with this we have is the white man's greatest power is his monopoly. He controls what African Americans believe about Africans. He's able to control what Native Africans believe about Africans back and forth. And he uses this control to his benefit. Now, from his position, it's his duty to do so. It's his duty because he's protecting his white interests. Until we recognize that the white man's agenda, his purpose, and how he's doing it, we will never liberate ourselves. When you're walking around, you see some of our people walking around with negative perception about our people. That's by design. That's been embedded into your minds. There's an entire social science. The propaganda is embedded within the movies you watch, the education you're taught, the narratives you hear. The white man has to do this because he needs Africa's natural resources. And because he's fearful of the collective aggressions of the black masses. We outnumber white people. And he's fearful of the collective aggressions being shifted towards him. So we are being programmed. Our minds, our opinions, our thoughts are being formulated by white men, and we don't even understand it. I'm sorry for going on.
Okay, I'm reading something that you wrote that was in 2018 that you wrote on your Facebook saying the most unsubstantiated and single most ignorant statement I've ever heard stated by an African American is that they are not Africans, but instead Hebrews. Millions of DNA analysis have confirmed our African ancestry. Not one has ever garnered the results that were not Africans, but instead Hebrews. Not even one. There exists no proof whatsoever that substantiates this claim. We owe it to our future generations to push back against these ideologies that neutralizes our minds, breeds black division, and keep our true spirituality at bay. So we do have people who believe that. Not only African Americans, but even some people here, our Africans who are based in Africa. We all believe that. We have come up with all of this. You have the information. By the way, in studio, we have King Ajamu, who is also an international historian teacher. And we have Kwame Gonza, who is also a Pan-African. Everybody here is loaded. You guys know about this. Why is it there is no, information dissemination all over Africa for our people to actually know this, to learn about this? Why is it's only a few who are pushing to educate our people, to empower them, to wake them up? What is wrong? Can we still say the whites are causing all of this?
Our people have been socialized to only find value in information from white sources, and we devalue information from black sources. There's an old saying, Malcolm X used to say that the white man ice is always colder in the mind. Okay, so we have to recognize this. And then when a people have been stripped of their knowledge, they're stripped of their information, of all their truths, lies can become truth. Indoctrination called education. Villains can be called heroes. This is the state of our people. The Black Hebrew ideology is a lunatic one. It's ridiculous. There are millions of them in America, and they teach that we are not Africans. The Africans came from the Hamites, and we in America came from Shem. But the story of Ham and Shem is totally fiction. Also, and according to the story of Ham and Shem, the Great Flood, according to the Bible, the Great Flood happened just over 4,600 years ago. So they say that's where Africans come from, Ham, right? However, science has proved that Africans are millions of years old. The story is a fictional one, and these people don't realize this story divides us from Africans. When the African Americans are divided from Africans, this makes global white supremacy stronger. It is the same foolish ideology if you study. The ignorance is being pushing this, because here's how the Ham story of Africans was introduced to African Americans. It was introduced to us during slavery. And we were taught that we were the sons of Ham, and our enslavement was a result of a curse. So they use the Bible. It says that they're fulfilling the prophecy by enslaving us. And what the ridiculous part is that same crazy ideology, the Hebrews have taken it and placed Ham onto Africans and calling ourselves Shem. Ham and Shem never existed. We are Africans. We've been kept in a state of ignorance, and that ignorance is being exploited. And our problem is the ignorant ones are overconfident, and the intelligent ones are filled with doubt. This has allowed the ideology of the ignorance to prevail through our community. Those of us who know, we have an obligation to make our voice louder and speak against the false information. Why? Normally they say people have a right to believe whatever they choose to believe. However, there's an exception to this rule, and that exception exists among the oppressed. When the ideologies of the oppressed hinders their liberation, we must attack that ideology. We must eradicate that ideology. Now, another problem is the ignorant ones are overconfident, and many of us who are educated, many of us who understand, we don't care about liberating our people. We just want a more comfortable footing within the system of white supremacy. So you see, it all traces back to the white man's monopoly over our minds, monopoly over our value system. And I'm going to show you how important this is and what's being done. In Africa, Africa is bombarded with Western propaganda 24/7. Now in China, they censor Western propaganda, and they're vilified for doing so. But people don't understand why that's being done. They're protecting the minds of their people. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, this movie came out, and this person was portraying Bruce Lee in a terrible way. So the Chinese banned it from coming to play over there. In the 1960s, the Chinese often censor movies where their group is being diminished, when their group is being marginalized. They censor information where it appears that the white man is superior. So much, in fact, there was a show called Greenhorn and Cato where the Asian was the servant. And when they brought it to China, they re-edited it and made the Chinese the star. They re-edited the dialogue because they understand the power of media social engineering. Mm-hmm. The white man fears Africans. So the state of confusion is by design. We are continually bombarded with propaganda that is designed to divide us. Many Native Africans come to America sometimes with a disdainment for African Americans. I have friends. I have friends from all over Africa, and some of them don't want their children to grow up and marry African Americans. I have a friend from Nigeria, and his children call themselves African Americans. And he gets angry, says, "No, call yourself Nigerian American." There's just resentment. And I try to say it's because most Africans don't know the great narratives of African Americans. You only know negative narratives. In fact, there are African Americans who lived here all their life, 80 years old, has never heard one positive narrative about themselves. I'll give you an example. Right. Here's the greatest narrative, in my opinion, about Africans globally. In spite of being wrought with racism, slavery, colonization, virtually most of the inventions that have revolutionized the world came from African minds and African inventors always inspired, but you don't know this. We are functioning based upon false narratives. I'll give you an example. Anywhere you're at, there are lights. You have lights in there, right? You have lights. And in your mind, whenever you turn that light on, you are thankful to the white man. The white man has given us lights. That's the narrative we're functioning on. But here's the reality. Here are the facts. When Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, no one purchased it. No one mass-produced it. He couldn't sell one because it was deemed not efficient enough for mass production. The person whose light bulb was mass-produced and who was dispatched around the world to oversee it was an African-American named Thomas Edison. Not Louis Latimer. A black man did light bulb. But you see the power of narratives? But in our minds, we thank the white man for the technology. You don't know it. Without African minds, you wouldn't have cars. The first car in America was actually invented by an African American. The motor is patented by an African American. The spark plug is patented by an African American. The dashboard is an African American. But the white man rewrites history to exalt himself. What he's doing, he's embedding a value system into the African mind that protects his interests. And we are functioning based upon these narratives. Our perception of reality is a white deception. The basic rule, the basic tool to control reality is to control the narratives. Those who control these narratives control our interpretation of reality. This is the thing that the Africans we need to address. Millions, for example, millions of Africans globally are Christians. And we loved Jesus. But let me show you how we have to apply, when we embrace those type of ideology, we are an insult to our ancestors who built the pyramids, our ancestors who civilized the world, our ancestors who introduced the bath to Europeans. These are facts. But watch this. Let us go back to Christianity. Let's go back in time. The early white Christians, now listen when I speak. If I say anything that sounds like a flaw, you attack me. The early white Christians, conversion of Africans into their fate had absolutely nothing to do with saving African souls so that Africans would join them in heaven in the afterlife. How do I know this? Because the early white Christians believed that Africans weren't humans, that Africans had no souls, and that heaven was for whites only. These are facts. Now, therefore, you can say with great certainty, given that they didn't believe Africans had souls, that heaven was for whites only, the conversion of Africans to Christians had nothing to do with saving African souls. The true reason for the conversion was to embed into the African psyche the image of a white God. This creates an adoration towards whiteness. And this adoration towards whiteness then psychologically transfers over to white people. So it made the Africans more subservient towards Africans. It made the Africans more compliant with white dominance over their lives. So it made Africans in America into better slaves. It made Africans of the continent easier to colonize. The Bible was the first propaganda literature used to mentally enslave the African mind, to socialize the African mind to think in ways that benefits white society. And that propaganda program is ongoing. It's ongoing. And we must address the white man's monopoly over our mind and why it's his interest. He has put billions of dollars into his propaganda program. And while he's embedding propaganda into our mind, many of us are just reading the Bible, waiting on Jesus. Now, it's not as hopeless as you think. I truly know that when a people are given the proper information, they're able to overcome everything. If this was not true, the white man wouldn't be so unrelenting, putting so much false information in us. He pumps it unrelentingly. There are propaganda designers. Well, that's their jobs. Their full-time job is to spread propaganda. To keep us divided and
Okay, let me just say this. When it comes to people, to what they believe in, when it comes to their beliefs, I don't know regarding this spirituality stuff. As Africans, we used to believe into something, then we woke up and we now believe in the Bible and stuff like that. It might take time to go to an African a Christian to say, no, what you are believing in is not the right way. This was all, planned to destroy Africa. It's just not easy. So just for today, because it's Sunday, everybody's actually coming back from church. We will talk about that. We'll bring the topic.
I was trained in psychological warfare by the U.S. government. Okay, I was trained in psychological warfare in the military. And here's what they teach us in brainwashing of people. They said, you don't care about the response. You don't even get emotional with what you're doing. But as an African, I get emotional because my people are being brainwashed. All you must do is continue to spread the counter propaganda. Regardless if the African minds get angry, that doesn't deter you. You must continue to push the proper information. When you subside and bend because, they don't like it, we become a part of the problem. I'm not trying to belittle people. I'm trying to be angry. But all we must do is find the proper information and continue to spread it. We must continue to spread the proper information. I understand
Mhm.
people get angry, but listen, we are at a unique opportunity to save the lives of Africans who aren't even born yet. And how? By start addressing the misinformation. We are in a unique position to save Africans who aren't even born yet by putting out the proper information. Next thing, if you have a big ship, it takes a while to turn that big ship around, but you must start turning the wheel. Turning the wheel. You will not live to see the ship entirely turn around, but you must be a part of the process of turning the wheel. And that
Mhm.
process is start speaking truth. Start speaking truth to power. When we when we buckle because of the ignorant of those who are ignorant, it is like a child who has a blanket, a germ-filled blanket, and he's sick, and he wants to hold onto his blanket, and you know that the blanket is making him sick. If you know the blanket is making the child sick, continue to pull that blanket from the child, even though the child is angry. It's really sad where people are in a state where you can't tell the truth. Um, you're hated for telling the truth. The African proverb goes, "Those that know must teach, and a speaker of truth has no friends." You must just speak the truth.
Ish.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
welcome to those who just joined in, King Ajamal, Prince George, and we have our leader here, Honorable Kwame Konsa. Here, everybody have a title, so don't be surprised. Everybody gets a title when you come here. They should be, as long as it's not Mister. I'm not. I'm a village girl. So you wanted to say something, King Ajam, regarding this
Yeah.
topic. I know you are a history teacher, and I'm sure you are part of those who've been spreading bad propaganda to our people because you need to teach what you are
Well,
told to teach.
Yeah.
well, to a certain extent. First of all, I would like to say, greetings to everybody. Um, I use the term king not because I'm a king, it's because I have kingship over my own mind.
Great.
I am my own
Ways,
man.
and
I am my own
I know
person.
that we all have
So,
history teacher, and
uh-oh.
I'm sure. Oh, sorry.
Nothing is influencing my mind at the moment. And I mean, like, I have destroyed all of the chains of captivity. They're gone. They no longer exist with me. So with me, I'm a big problem here in the belly of the beast. I'm the big problem because I'm walking around
Okay.
and I don't have anything connecting my brain to anything else. The brother Franklin, I commend him. I don't even know this brother. I commend the brother because he talking the truth. He talking exactly the truth. The same stuff I'm facing, he's facing. And I'm pretty sure you on the East Coast? Or where you at?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay, I'm in Orlando.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm facing the same stuff. Okay. As far as I know it's Sunday and I get the religion part on the continent. What I will say is that from my understanding, from my extensive research, I don't care what religion it is, it's allegorical. Allegorical. There is a deeper meaning. What is the deeper meaning? That's what you need to answer for yourself. All these stories are allegorical. All right. I found out about 5-10 years ago. Well, actually about 10 years ago, that my family are Yoruba. They're from Southwest Nigeria. That's why I'm wearing Yoruba clothing. Okay. Um, the Yoruba have a spiritual system. It's allegorical. None of that stuff exists. It's allegorical. Now you
Okay.
think it exists, people can make money off of you. They're gonna make money off of you. They're gonna manipulate you and stuff. It's all allegorical. Okay, all of those so quote unquote deities dwell in you. They dwell in you. They're part of your personality. And whether they come out or not is up to you. All right. Back to Franklin. There was a book. There was a book published in the United States. It's called How to Make a Slave Christian.
Yeah,
There
absolutely.
was a book
Yeah.
published in the United States of America, How to Make a Slave Christian. I'm going to leave it like that. He mentioned about the government, COINTELPRO. We got to wake up. COINTELPRO. It's an organization within the FBI that makes sure that African Americans do not rise economically, socially, spiritually. Well,
Okay.
actually,
So
yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is that you have a bunch of people running around and they're docile. When you tell them, hey man, come on, let's wake up, man. Come on, join me. Let's get together economically. Let's open our own businesses. Let's pay for our children's college education, or let's employ them. Let's do business with people in Africa. Oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm good. No, I'm good. I don't need that. No, we got Macy's, we got J.C. Penney's, we got all these places. Why do I need to get together? What's wrong with you, brother? And why you got that clothes on? Why you got that on? What are you doing? Don't you pray?
yeah.
And I'm looking at them like, what? I didn't say none of that. I didn't even mention none of that. I asked, can we get together economically and join and do some business together and let's make some money? And then all this other stuff comes about. So you
Wow.
had a
So
question, Queen? Go ahead.
yes. Okay. Is somebody have their Facebook on? Okay, you can switch that off so that I don't hear myself speaking. I have a comment here from Eninira, who is also one of the broadcasters at Radio 54. She's saying, I know about that book, How to Make a Negro Christian. She's commenting on Radio 54. Thank you so much, Annie, for that contribution. I think I need to read that book so that maybe it's either I understand or I become a Christian. So there are two things. There are two things involved after reading that book. I either become a slave or I become a Christian, or either way, it's one and all the same thing. I wanted to say, we all know these things now, right? It's been years that we know that. Why are we not forming communities of our people? Like right now, King Ajamo, you are that side. We have Franklin Jones here. We have George as well. Why are we not forming those communities to help our people? Because sometimes to liberate a mindset, you don't need 100 people. I read something that says if you can't feed your team with 2 pizzas, it's too big. So it simply means you don't need an army to actually liberate our people. 10 people is enough in each community.
Can I
So
answer that matter?
yes, you can go on. You can go on. That's Kwame Konsa. He's a Pan-African
Yeah.
leader who has been advocating for unity of Africans. He's a Ugandan who is based in Ghana. You can go on.
Thank you very much, Martha. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you, Brother Franklin. Thank you, all the guests,
Kwame?
my brothers. Hello, can you hear me?
Is it me or is it him?
I hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, Martha, they can hear me. I think you need to fix up the volume a little bit. I think what we are doing, to answer your question, which you asked, we can start from where we are doing. I think this is what we have started already doing. I heard Brother Franklin speaking on Sister Shani's show. So I had to contact him, and I told him that you need to start appearing on radio stations or on information services in Africa so that our people can hear you, because we really have this problem of brainwashing of our people. And I think that we are working as Pan-Africanists. Pan-Africanism has been weakened since the 1960s because it reached a stage whereby it took power. When you look at people like Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, Amika Kalbri, that is the highest stage at which Pan-Africanism reached in the 60s, and it took power in the African continent. It came from the diaspora from the United States, came to Manchester, and came to the African continent, and it took power. So, but it was weakened to some point, and it went underground. Okay, so now we've been underground for for some time, but this is our time where we see that it has come for us again to rise up again and reach a point whereby we take power and institute systems. When you look at what Kwame Nkrumah, for example, did in Ghana, he rolled out systems. Like, for example, he formed the Kwame Nkrumah Institute of Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute. That is where people like Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, the recent president of Zimbabwe, was trained. He was trained in Ghana. So these are things which can be instituted on a larger scale when we have taken power, or when we have taken the stage of government, the political stage. I will talk of, for example, China. When you look at China, when China solved the political problem in their society, you can see that they have been able to solve the economic problem and the social problems in their society. So the stage where we are, we can only do much because we do not have the tools to make these things institutional, whereby we de-brainwash our people. So we can only use the resources which we have right now, like what Brother Franklin is doing there. When I see him, I recommend him to Sister Martha. Please, you need to bring him so that he can hear, he can teach our people and what is going on. Me, myself, the position where I am, I can only do much because I really don't have, access to these tools of power. And our people have been alienated from the tools of power, the political stage, because that is where everything happens. Contrary to what everyone says that, do this, let us start with economics, let us start with doing small things in this side. You can only do so much at that stage, but the power is at the political level. Once you capture power, when you look at Kwame Nkrumah, what he said that seek ye first the political kingdom, and all the other things shall be added unto you. So what he meant, what he understood and he meant here is that everything happens at the political stage. Do not shy away from fighting for political power. Black people, fight and get the power. That is where you make, structural changes in society. So because these people captured our political power in our society, now they are able to institute all these things, economic policies. When you see what is happening in Africa, our economic policies are, are done, are given out from the World Bank and the IMF, in New York, Brussels, Paris, because they captured our political power. They overthrew our presidents. So this is what happened. Now, when things like, things like corruption happen, they say, oh, you people are corrupt, Africans are corrupt. And we also buy into this narrative.
Yes.
Not knowing that these people are the ones who are corrupt. Like if you look at the recent report which came out, the UN report, they said Africa is losing around $100 billion every year. Yes. Every year, Africa is losing $100 billion. But those $100 billion, when you trace them, when you trace where that money is going, our money is going, one of the sources which was identified where the money is going is the United States. You see, the other place is Switzerland. But when you are here, they will tell you that Africans are corrupt. But no one is questioning these people who are stealing from us. No one is questioning them. So what am I saying? I'm saying right now we can only do so much, but we need to push in the direction of political unity of Africa. This is what Nkrumah was talking about in the 1960s, that until we have unified Africa, we cannot even start, fighting to remove these people who are influencing us. The problems which we have in Africa today, corruption, unemployment, these are social problems. Like I said, society is organized from the political level, economic level, then you have social level. That is how everything happens. So what we are having today is social problems, and they are not telling us that these social problems are coming from the political level. You see, so we have to push in the direction of African unity. All of us Pan-Africans now, we have to come together, sit down, put the strategies on the table, whether we want or not, whatever strategy we have, we have to put on the table and start moving in that direction of liberating our people. Because whatever happens in Africa is going to reflect on how our people are treated in the United States, how our people are treated in China, how our people are treated, in the UK, how our people are treated everywhere, all around the earth. Like Malcolm X said, that if Africa is not great, if Africa doesn't, get to the level where it is respected, no black man will ever be respected anywhere in the world. So these are the problems. Tribalism. When you normally talk of unity in Africa, people will say we have 2,000 tribes in Africa. How is this going to happen? But these people, what they don't understand is that they are looking at tribalism and our tribes in Africa from a negative point of view. You see, they do not look at our tribes as a source of diversity. You see, they don't look at it from a positive point of view. They are always looking at it from a negative point of view. And these are some of the things which a brother Franklin is talking about. This is a narrative which has been pushed by the oppressors, because these oppressors continues to say, how are you going to unite 2,000 people? How are you going, 2,000 tribes with more than 2,000 languages? But this is not the point. So I think that our tribes as a people, as Africans, have to start being looked at as a point of strength. As you know, these are good. This is a good thing. It shows that we are a very accommodating people. You know, there is no place on earth which is as diverse as Africa, and there's no people who are more hostile like Africans. So this is a point whereby we have to use and unify instead of looking at it as a negative point. Always they say negative, it is a negative thing. It is a bad thing to be tribal. It is a bad thing to have all these 2,000 tribes, which is not true.
My dear brother.
See?
Thank
you.
We cut you off. I love what you're saying, and you said so much, and they're so right. You're on point. I have this I believe that I know that we have to look at white racism as a social science, because it is a social science. So rather than just we talk about our condition, we have to show our people why it's done, how it's done. Now, two things you mentioned. You talked about Pan-Africanism was at its peak in the 1960s. And you also talked about the West gets billions of dollars from Africa every year. But the illusion is that the West gives more to Africa. Reason for that is the global propaganda. They put out propaganda to create the illusion that Africa needs more from the West than the West needs from Africa. Now, there's a thing that the propagandists teach. It says perception is more important than reality, because people don't function based upon reality. They function based upon their perception of reality. So the white man uses propaganda to create an illusion, to make the minds of the masses think in ways that benefit him. And that's the science behind it. It's necessary for protecting their interests. When you talked about the 1960s, the Black Pride movement was so much stronger, the Pan-African music, let's explain to our people why this is and how it changed. In 1960s, African Americans were wearing afro braids, cornrows. We were giving ourselves African names, and we were wearing dashikis. We were declaring that Black is beautiful. Today, in contrast to that, African Americans are calling themselves niggers, bitches, and hoes. And in fact, many African Americans rather be called a nigger than African. Our women are now wearing blonde wigs. Our people are bleaching their kids. This reverse of our culture is by design. In 1968, Lyndon Johnson, Edgar Hoover said the greatest threat against America was the unification of the American Negro. So Lyndon Johnson put a commission together called the Curran Commission to study the African American community, to find out what was the problem and how to recommend fixing it. They determined there are two core factors. The first factor, the problem was the result of blatant white racism. They also recognized that the emergence of the Black Pride movement elevated the collective self-esteem of Black people in America. And this elevated self-esteem led to more unified protests. So they hired these social scientists to socially engineer the African-American culture away from the Black Pride movement. And how they achieved this? They achieved it by a science of media social engineering. Most people think that the media reflects our reality, but in truth, most of us imitate what we learn from the media.
So if I can chime in real quick, I'm somebody who has risen through all of these things that you're speaking of, and I'm a man of peace. I'm not one to interrupt. So, I'm going to ask you all to make sure that we're making space for people to chime in, because I'd rather not interrupt anybody. But I have grown up, I'm young, I'm 22, and I've grown up through all these things that you all are speaking about. So I am somebody who does not only have that experience of living through those social engineering tactics and mind twisting things, but I'm somebody who now has arrived to the same perception and state of mind that you all are in. So I know how to get people out of it. So with that alone, I have some real power that I have to share. So second, the aggressive tactics, the pulling the blanket away from the child, even though he's holding his most to hold on to it, that's not going to work as long as they have those mosques and churches to run right back to, because it just scares them. It hurts them. They have bruises that are so deep inside of them that go beyond the physical, and they don't comprehend them. So if you hit the bruise too hard, it's going to push them back.
Please let me respond. In this social science, I've been taught this through science. I'm show you something. In America, it has been known that the Native Americans, for example, I'm sure how it actually does work. Right now, the African Americans believe that we are the true indigenous Americans. And how was this done? Now, how was you able to remove us from Africa? All they did was continue to put out propaganda, and you reinforce it, and you keep putting it out. Now, millions of African Americans said, we're not Africans. Mm-hmm. Now, they didn't pull Africa from them. Maybe I used it out of the blanket. But the propaganda is just sending the same reinforced information. That's all you do. This is a science. Mm-hmm. So all you have to do, now I saw you look at a visual of the blanket. You find the counter narrative, and you just keep feeding it. You're feeding it. And they teach us, don't get emotional, don't get angry. You just keep spreading the information. So that's what I meant, what I'm saying. When you find the proper information, you share it and you continue reinforcing it. Of course, you're not literally pulling something from someone's hand. You just keep spreading it. Right now in America, many Native Americans are angry with the African American community because we are now, many of us are saying that they're fake, they're fraudsters. We are the true Native Americans. And how the white man merely just start putting out the propaganda that we are the true Native, and you keep spreading it, and the people will buy into it. Millions of people. The Black Hebrew ideology, even though millions of African Americans taking DNA testing that proves they're from Africa, the ideology of the Black Hebrew continues to grow. Propaganda is simply finding the counter narrative, and you just keep pushing it. The analogy of the blanket, and that's kind of harsh for a child, but the reality is all you do is find the truth, and you keep sharing it. When you're on a Sunday program, you don't censor it in that program. You continue to spread the proper narratives, and millions change.
The reason why that.
Well, I was gonna say, Brother Franklin, you are correct about the propaganda. I read a book by Edward Bernays, mm-hmm. and that is the nephew of Sigmund Freud. So they're using these tactics that have been implemented for many years. Yeah. I think that, and then when you mention it to somebody, they look at you like, are you out of your mind? Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not out of my mind. Did you read the book? No, I didn't read the book. Did you read about this? No, I didn't read about that. Do you understand about it? No, I don't. So how can we have a conversation if you're not on the same kind of intellectual level? Yeah. You know what I mean? And but I still agree with you. Sometimes you got to just put the knowledge out there and then let it fall where it falls. Let it fall where it falls.
Yeah,
I said about Sigmund Freud.
I think.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
What you just said about Sigmund Freud, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think.
Sigmund Freud, you're absolutely right. No. Sigmund Freud and Edward Bernays were one of the founders of the Tavistock Institute. Sigmund Freud took Edward Bernays took his uncle's study of the human mind and combined it with his teaching of mass manipulation. And he used that to manipulate the minds. I'll give an example of this. During the 1930s, most women didn't smoke. It was considered taboo for women to smoke. So the tobacco agency says that there's an untapped market. So we need the women to start smoking. So Sigmund Freud did a marketing campaign where he had women smoking these cigarettes. And he made it, and he used the term the torch of freedom, because he understood that women were under male dominancy. So using the cigarette, calling it a torch of freedom, is symbolic being rebellious to male dominance. And he pushed that in market campaigns all around the world. and millions of women started smoking.
Yep.
It is called hacking the herd mentality, the group mind.
Right.
Thomas Edison, that's Thomas Edison, Edward Bernays created the term the group mind. This is a science, and we must understand the science. There's a video on YouTube called The Century of Self. I recommend you all watch it. There is a system that's in place, and the reason, and we must spread our truth just as unrelentingly as the white man spreads his lies. The white man doesn't bend his lies. He doesn't say, okay, blacks are not going to believe this. He doesn't. He just creates the narrative, and in a narrative that benefits himself, and he continues to push it. The human mind's like a computer. All you do is keep giving them so much information over and over, and you can steer an entire generation towards an applied objective. These people thoroughly studied this. In fact, if you try to buy a book from the Towson Institute, the cheapest book is $5,000.
Yeah.
Why? It's to keep that knowledge out of the hands of the masses. There was a system in place, and we have to recognize this. The white man has been dominating the African world for 500 years. You cannot dominate people for 500 years without applying a science, a social science. And we, as African people, must thoroughly learn the social science, approach it as a social science that it is, and develop counter strategies against it. What I'm saying is not what I'm guessing, not what I feel. I was in class and they were teaching. Here's what they teach in American psychological classes. They said the most effective method for oppressing a people without fighting them is to mislead them to believe that their condition is an internalized one. When a people believe their condition is an internalized one, this mentally cripples them. You know the story of Willie Lynch? Many black people take that story because it was propagated and we believe it. But when we believe that we are suffering from a Willie Lynch, when we believe we are suffering from a post-traumatic slave disorder, this turns our collective aggressions against ourselves. And here's the catch. Once you've been programmed to believe something, you then only notice those things that appear to confirm the programming, and you become psychologically blinded from seeing everything that refutes it. White men have thoroughly studied this, and he used it to imprison the mind of black men. I will stop after this. I'll say one thing. Let's y'all talk. You ever notice if a black man believes that black women are loud and abrasive, for example? That's now embedded in his mind. He goes to a function. There are 40 black women there. And one black woman starts acting in a manner that confirms his program. He will say, man, I told you black women are drip. I told you black women are abrasive. Because he noticed that one woman who appears to confirm the programming, and he becomes psychologically blinded from 39 others who didn't. That man will then say it's the truth. Black women are this way, although his experiences does not actually quantify his belief. In fact, there is no black person on this planet who can quantify their negative assessment of their race. None. None of us can do it because our experiences is never enough to quantify it. We have been programmed to believe it's enough. If I walk out my door and I see a black man kill another black man every day for 1 year, that's 365 homicides. Even if I saw 365 homicides, that's not enough to quantify me seeing blacks are killing themselves. Here's why. There are over 55 million black people in America. 365 is not even half of 1% of that number. And secondly, our number in America is higher. But as part of the psychological operation, it always tells our numbers are lower. We have to understand, Marcus Garvey said something years ago, the white man's propaganda has made him master. And all of those who accept it become this is a science. I'm not speaking, I don't speak from the frustration of the behavior of my people. But I do push against misinformation. This is a science, and the white man's using it to us. And we must acknowledge it in order to overcome it, because you can never overcome what you don't acknowledge, what you don't study the science. And, brother, I am a student as well as a teacher. I learn every day. I'm a student to some and a teacher to others. I don't think I know it all. I'm not arrogant. A man who thinks he knows it all stops learning. But I know what I know. And those who know must teach.
Thank you very much, Brother Franklin. I think I can listen to you, all day. If you look at, just to complement what you said, if you look at what the Chinese did, we the African continent, we have had this contact with the Europeans for the last 500 to 600 years, and the Chinese had this contact with these foreign civilizations for a very short period of time. If you look at them, compared to what Africa has had. But do you know what the Chinese did when the Chinese fought against, the influence of the Western world? What Mao Zedong, who is the father of modern China, who's the father of modern day China, what he did is that they fought anyone who had a mindset of the Europeans and the Americans. So what they did is that they re-educated their people even before starting to work in China. They outlawed any writing in English. When you go to China,
Yes.
they outlawed. There was no writing in English. So they re-educated
Yes.
their people, you see. And these are some of the things which Dr. Kwame Nkrumah actually was fighting for when you come to Ghana. When you come to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and what he was seeing is that we are not the problem to ourselves, but we have some external force which is fighting against us.
Yes.
But the people he was arguing with, they were so brainwashed that they could not understand. We look at Kwame Nkrumah. This is a figure. The FBI and the CIA, they did an assessment on him, and they said that this was someone who was so creative. You see that he was able to bring order out of chaos. He was able to organize information and all situations which are in disorder and bring order out of it. This is the files, the FBI files which came out, and they were talking about Kwame Nkrumah. They said that he's an original thinker. You see, so this is because for him, he lived in the United States for 10 years. He lived in Manchester, and then he came to he came back to the continent. So he understood a lot of things which his contemporaries, they did not understand. So while most of them, they were seeing tribal, problems on the continent. They were seeing corruption. They were seeing unemployment. But he was seeing a big picture and showing them that if we are able to control the continent, we will be able to control the resources, and we will be able to rein in on all the problems, unemployment, all all these problems. We will be able to rein in on them. And that mindset of the people who look at our tribes and the countries in Africa as a problem which hinders unity and progress. These are the people who have been, educated in this same education system of the Western world, that whenever you talk about African unity, they see it as something far-fetched. But when you talk of the borders actually themselves on the African continent, these are just psychological. When you walk, for example, from between Uganda and Kenya, you don't really see a border which is there, apart from maybe a few things which have been created. But when you walk around the whole border, which they say is Uganda, you really don't see where is the border. So you can see that all these things are psychological.
Yes.
People have been educated into believing this is important.
Yes.
South Africa is important. South Africa is more important than the other, Africans. Ghana is the beacon of democracy. These are the tactics, the divide and conquer tactics which they have been using. For example, in Africa, they say Ghana is the beacon of democracy, and some other people, they pick it up and they start airing it out. So how can Ghana be the beacon of democracy and be more important than other African countries, who have a lot of resources? So in Africa, what they have done is that they have taught the people to be inward looking. They look inside, like people, they will look in Togo and say, this is ours. They will look in Kenya and say, this is ours. They will neglect the amount of resources which are in, for example, the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo alone, we have around $38 trillion of resources in the ground, you see. But the people will sit in South Africa and say they don't want to hear what is happening in Congo. And yet this is all their property which was given to them by God, you see. And the enemy, these whites, they have these tactics of continuing to push this narrative. And our people buy in it. They continue to buy in it, so that we are not able to see that Apple, as a company which has reached around $2 trillion, has just been built out of the resources from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Meanwhile, Africa as a continent, our GDP all is 2.5 trillion, almost equal to Apple as a company. So I think that we, as Brother Franklin is saying, we have to understand this science, and then we have to push forward. We have to push the narrative of unifying Africa, and we have to push the narrative of understanding that we as African people, even all around the world, whether they're in the United States, the so-called African Americans are not real African Americans, but these are African people all around the world. If I may say, there is a memorandum which was, published in. There is a memorandum which is called the NSC Memorandum 46. Yeah. It was a.
My brother.
I think he got frozen.
Okay. Can I add in, guys? Sorry, I've been on and off. Sorry about that. I think my network has been colonized. So it actually happens when you are discussing such big topics. You just find yourself colonized out of nowhere. So I just want to appreciate your contribution, guys. Everything that you're saying, and I hope that we are reaching, the right people. It begins with you and I. It begins here, and I must appreciate the Radio 54, because that's what we are trying to do. To educate our own people, empower our own people. There are some media that are already captured. Most media is actually captured. They wouldn't give you a platform to talk about this because we don't own it. So media is very important. And as Africans, we should also start, owning our own media, owning our television stations.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, Brother Franklin, what I've noticed is, I talk to a lot of Africans on that side. I'm actually part of an organization on that side called the United New Africa Family. And I noticed, like, when you speak, when I try to subtly expose those that science that you speak of, because I already know about it. I've known about it since I was 8 years old. I grew up in Harlem. I grew up in Harlem, New York. My family's from Harlem, New York. So the science I've known for a long time. What my grandmother told me, when you introduce the science, you got to do it in little steps. You can't just drop it on people. I said, that's fine, Grandma. But I've known after she's passed, I know that it's not about giving it in little steps or big steps or small steps. It's about covertly giving this knowledge out. Because believe me, I've come straight up. Boom. This is what's going on. You're being bamboozled. Boom, 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 boom. And then they look at me and they say, they get mad. They get mad, like they defend the oppressor. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm not your oppressor. So I'm trying to liberate you. And then on that side, on the African side, they're real quick to say, oh, that's a victim mentality. What? Victim mentality? I'm not a victim. So why? But see, that's what I'm noticing. I think you're right. I think on that side, on the continent side, I hear it a lot. That victim, we're not playing victim. We're not playing victim. And I'm like, that's the excuse that they put in their minds so they won't face the science that you talking about. That I know about as well.
Allow me to reply. Please allow me to reply. Okay.
Go ahead.
On a program like this, where I only may have a couple hours to speak, I go directly to it. If I have a school and teaching children, that gives me a curriculum where I'm teaching it in a different manner. Mm-hmm. I'm in a program where I have a limited window. Also, some things you're saying, have you noticed? I don't speak like someone who's complaining over the word bitching. I show you that I'm showing you the science to this. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm gonna give you an example. The sister just talked about the people who speak truth is not given a national platform in the media. That's a science. Here's why that. The white oppressors learned in the 1960s that was by giving Malcolm X and Dr. King a national platform that their popularity grew, that they got more followers, they became more powerful. So now the white man do not give a national platform to any black man or black woman who speaks revolutionary truth. Mm-hmm. They treat black people like you would weed in your garden. Mm-hmm. You starve weed of water. You don't fertilize weed. You yank it out or you deprive it. So the science is we're being intentionally deprived from a national platform to prevent our ideology from growing. The next thing the brother said earlier, when he talked about how in Africa that these people walk around these mindsets, as you notice, I'm speaking to you more and I'm teaching. Watch this. If you have a city, a town, and this town is very unfriendly, the most unfriendliest town in the Southeast, and you start putting on all the billboards, welcome to so-and-so, the friendliest town, the friendliest city in the region, and you put it in the books, you put it on the billboards, the people will start responding based upon your narrative. They will say, hello, how you doing? This is the friendliest town in the Southeast. And they start buying into the narrative, even though the narrative is totally untrue. The white man is studied thoroughly, and he puts narrative to shape our mind. And how else do I tell people that without just explaining it to them? Your thoughts are formed, your opinions are made by white propagandists you don't know exist. It's by design. We always say, why Africa is so divided? The question we should ask is, who benefits when Africans are so divided? The Western world. The Western world has to keep Africa economically underdeveloped areas. The Western world has to keep Africa divided. When our mindsets are benefiting the oppressors, we must turn and focus on what the oppressor is doing to us. And to do so, you have to look at it in a science, because it is a science.
Mm-hmm.
Can I please chime in here? Because, brother, you're speaking truth and you have the knowledge. But if you want to get through, you have to realize that it doesn't matter what you're teaching if the student isn't receptive. And the manner in which you're speaking, I grew up in a Christian family and I went to Catholic school my whole life, for the most part. The manner in which you're speaking resembles a church pastor. And I'm not coming at you. I'm talking in terms of iron sharpens iron. We're both here trying to progress the same cause. And if I can share a few words with you, you can go forward and help even more people. So you have to make sure that the student is receptive. And how far the social engineering of the white man's work and all that, I don't even focus on all that because I'm trying to get my people out of that. So I like to talk more about us and less about what they're doing, because it's progressed to the point where people who are stuck in it, they don't want to hear none of that stuff that you're talking, bro. They don't want to hear about the science that's already manipulating their mind. They already have like a self-defense system input into their mind. So if you're coming at them that hard with that science, like, yeah, it's true. I've lived through, I've overcome it. But you have to find a different approach where only certain people are going to want to hear it in that scientific breakdown of all these different ways. You have to find ways to empower the person without really, going like, hey, you've been brainwashed for the past 200 years. And it's to the point where it's ancestral things that are also, factoring in. So what I like to say is, give them nuggets, give them little pieces, and then let them walk it. You'll know which people need to hear that scientific breakdown of just how they're doing it. But most people don't even need to hear that. They just need to hear small things that will empower them.
Okay, stop.
Themselves.
Most people don't need to hear it. How do you know that most people don't need to hear it? I am 35 years older than you, and I'm
22, bro.
Listen, I'm 35 years older than you.
The youth is what matters.
And I have much more experience. I've been trained in this. So when you tell me people don't want to hear this, trust me, along my journey, those 35 years and my training, I've acquired some knowledge along that way. To say that there will always be those who are not receptive, but then there are always those who will be receptive. I don't focus on those who are not receptive. I focus on those who will be receptive. Now, if a fruit falls from a tree and it rolls so far away from the tree, it becomes rotten. It's no longer a part of the root. And there's nothing you can do to return that fruit back to the tree. It is this way with some of our people. They will never awaken. It is what it is. But what we must do is just teach the truth, and those who are receptive to it. Maybe you're not at the level to receptive to it, but you cannot say most are not. We're not, you can't quantify saying most are not. There are those who won't and those who will. And you put out the information. When I was learning psychological propaganda in the government, they never said, don't keep pushing it. You find the proper narrative and you just keep pushing it. You say I sound like a preacher because I sound passionate, or I speak, or I project, or I speak. but I'm not speaking of Jesus. I'm not speaking of things that make me slaves our people. Christianity let me slaves our people. Then what I'm saying expands the radius of our minds. So if I deliver it with passion, so be it. If I
Uh,
straight, so be it. But
My
yeah,
point is not that you're delivering with passion. It's the anger
no,
behind.
I'm not angry.
no, no,
You
no.
sound very angry.
Uh, let me just come in. Let me just come in on what Brother Franklin is saying. You see, the message, the way the message is given to you, and with your passion which you have, is how you are supposed to
Okay.
give the message.
All right.
Now, if you look at people like, for example, Kwame Nkrumah, I like bringing him up. He told the people what the problem is. He wrote the
No.
books. He wrote even
Gentlemen.
he wrote the book called Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, and he distributed the book to 32 African heads of state that time, of independent African states. These people, they did not listen to him. Okay, so his work is not to moderate his message. That is not his work. His work is to bring out the truth. So even up to today, if you go and read one chapter in that book called the Mechanism of Neocolonialism, it will tell you everything they are doing. The newspapers, what is happening in the newspaper, Hollywood, what Hollywood is doing, what the CIA is doing. He wrote everything down and he put it there. So what I'm saying is this, is that if a message is given to you, your work is to put it out there. So those people who want to listen, they will listen. Those ones who think they cannot listen in the tone you are speaking, then maybe that message is not for them. Even in the church, when people speak, when the pastor is speaking in the church, there is people, the message will not touch them. They will still go away and they think. So just let me to give you what he said one time. At one point, when Nkrumah was talking so much to people and people, they were not understanding what he was saying, because he used to speak and even beat the table, a president, because people are not understanding what he's saying. He said that I have spoken, I've painfully tried to explain what I'm meaning by to you people, by the enemy, by imperialism and neocolonialism, because he was seeing the problem and people are not seeing the problem. He was seeing 50 years ahead. He was looking at Africa and he's seeing 100 years ahead what is going to happen to Africa. And when he was removed from power, everything he said started happening when people did not listen. So it is not his work to moderate and suit the people who want to, it pains him, even the carrier of the message sometimes. It pains him. Like he said, I have painfully tried to explain. As I have painfully tried to explain, but you people are not understanding what I'm saying. And you could see that it is paining him. He's carrying the cross and he's trying to warn the people. But the people are not hearing.
That's
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I would like to say just real quick, Brother Franklin, and what's your name again, brother, in Ghana?
Kwame Gonza.
Kwame. All right. So I agree. Me personally, I'm 47 years old, believe it or not. I don't care how the information gets out, whether it gets out violently or not violently. I just need the information out. You know what I'm saying? I don't really. And I'm not going against anybody on the panel or nothing like that. I guess I'm coming from a different generation, so it doesn't matter to me how the information comes out, as long as the information comes out. That's all I'm concerned about. I see. I know that I've spoken before in many platforms, and people actually walked out of the building. They looked at me like you going to hell, you going to hell, brother, and they walked out, and then I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I changed it up a little bit, I softened up a little bit, but in the end, when I softened it up, they still walked out of the building. So what's the difference? That was my thing. That was my thing in my mind. What is the difference whether I came out straightforward or I sugarcoated it? They still walked out of the building. I've been in that situation many times. I agree with the brother in Ghana. It's like people will say certain things. Only the wise will really get it. And then that's all you'd really need. You don't want somebody that's not going to take the knowledge and push it further. So, like in the case of the brother Kwame said, Kwame Nkrumah, when he spoke and he said things that was 30 years in advance, if it fell upon ears that could articulated, then those guys and women could change the narrative because of the fact that they had the information. They were able to absorb it at the time that the man was alive. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't, it doesn't matter to me how the information comes out. Believe me, I've had friends that they're worse than Franklin. I got friends that are, and I'm not saying you bad. I ain't saying you bad. I'm saying I got friends that are more direct than Franklin.
Let me say something, please.
And I love them because I'm like, hey, they speaking the truth. That's how they came out. That's their personality.
Let me reply, please. Maybe I may be come across angry or radical. I'm neither angry nor radical, nor am I having blind hatred. I've spoken at many Black colleges in Atlanta, and the applause it's always great. The response is always great, and even when I'm speaking with others, I always get a great response. Even Morehouse wrote an article about me. If I come across anger, it's not anger what you're seeing. Malcolm X says something, and I live by it. Malcolm X says, people said I speak from hate. Malcolm X said, no, I'm speaking for love for my people. The frustration that you may, the way I speak, this is what moves me to write. This is what moves me to speak. Once you start to understand the system, and you see those who will say something else, but you've seen that you've been trained by the white man in how to manipulate our masses. And when you bring this knowledge to your people, listen, no, I feel this way. No, I feel that way. And I say, no, there is a science. This is a textbook. This is a textbook tactic they use against us, a time and proven textbook. So maybe perhaps I may project in a way where some people would find it abrasive. But if those who've seen my entire presentation, no one ever thinks I'm angry.
Well, let me clarify.
Okay.
Because I've only had less than a handful of opportunities to speak here. So.
Okay. Can I cut you off before we can continue? I know that I've been kicked out once in a while or so. So that's why you see me going in and out. I want to give Prince George just an opportunity to say what he wanted to say, so that we can move to the question. I know that we have been paving the way, explaining everything. Now we want to focus on the poor economic development in Africa and the leadership that we have. I want us to tackle that in any way, but after Prince George have spoken, you can continue, Prince George. You wanted to say?
What I was trying to say is I see that he's not angry, and I see that he has real wisdom that he's sharing, and I see that he has the knowledge. I'm in no way saying that he's coming off too direct, because I know that it gets much more direct than that. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything either, but I'm telling you from the perspective of the youth and how deep their conditioning is. They've had to deal with certain things up to this point, that certain, like dealing with certain rhetorics and certain approaches, it's not gonna come through. It's gonna bounce off the nutshell, and then that pushes them deeper into what they are already in. And we're trying to get them out here. We're trying to show them a different way and lead them out.
Yeah,
and that's what I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to say it to.
I think what I think about Prince George's, a statement and observation is that if someone is given this message, he has a burden. I think it is up to us, people like you, George, when you see him, you go out there, read the book and try to articulate the message, in the way you feel that it should be articulated. I mean, you help him, because if someone is given a message like this, it is a burden for them. You see, it is a burden for them to try to understand, the audience, like this audience wants to hear the message in this way. It is really a burden once you are given this message and you want to put it out with so much passion. So it is up to us, we as a people, who have observed this, and we have observed this message. You help him that, let me read the book, but I will go out there also and articulate your message
and share the message
which you are trying to
that was my point.
Yes.
Essentially, I was trying to diversify his approach, not shun his approach, because I am the youth. I may be new to the scene, but trust me, I will be known. So I was just giving him a little scent, like, okay, try this out here and there, and then watch how you may hit that different market segment.
Okay, I would love to read something here. Perseverance FG. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. He was here last time talking about entrepreneurship and what he's doing in Africa. He said, very true, people respond to your own narrative. If as Africans say Africa is backward, others will start believing it too. And Mira, she is also seconding that, saying true, and that's one of the problems that we're facing here in Africa. And Perseverance went on to say we should never forget the past, but we should not be stuck in the past. Slavery and colonization subdued us, but even countries with undoubtable can rise. People must craft their own destiny, build in their own contextualized economic and political blueprints guided by their own priorities. So I think what he's trying to say, just to sum it up, is that colonization happened, right? We've been there, now we know it. It is us to pave the future for ourselves. It is us to write the narrative that suits us and start believing it. When we look at the economic condition of Africa as a whole, we depend on the rest of the world, but the rest of the world should be depending on us. Well, how are we shaping ourselves? How are we coming together to say now we are shaping our own economic development? Because if we continue being victims, I think at some point we might end up just losing the whole thing that we are trying to build. So we are left with a few minutes, I think about 14 minutes. So I want us to wrap up by guiding or sharing what you think should be done to develop Africa economically. What should be done?
You know, what you said is true. The narrative that we have in Africa, you run into 10 African, ask them, tell me 10 positive narratives about Africa. The average can't tell you 10 positive narratives about Africa. Give me 10 positive about Africa as a whole. Now, the problem when you have so many Africans can't give you 10 positive narrative of Africa, that's a problem. That's a problem because we are functioning based upon the white man's narrative. And it is true, the white world needs Africa more than Africa needs the white world. But by giving us the narrative that Africa needs them more, we function based upon that narrative. There is a mineral called coltan. I would say it right. It's found only in Africa, and it's put in all smartphones, all laptops, and the only place they can get it from is Africa. And that's just one. I talk about the diamonds, the gold. They need Africa to continue.
Uranium.
But they create the narratives, and we function. They call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Africans are functioning based upon the self-fulfilling prophecy of negative narratives that the West continue to put on us. And in order to liberate ourselves, we have to see everything's connected. The state of our economics, because they are able to exploit us because they create the narrative that they're helping us, and the masses are functioning by it. In America, people think that they would insult us. Go back to Africa. Go back to dirty Africa. Y'all need us. Slavery benefited you. The society is functioning based upon the narrative that benefit white society. And in Africa, many of us in Africa are benefit and function on the same way. We must, I know it's difficult to hear this, but we must do what China did. To free ourselves, we have to take control of our narrative. And to do so, we would take control of our media. We would take control of our education. And all those problems that you're seeing, we will rise above them. If the mental state of the African wasn't the core problem, the white man would not have put billions of dollars into manipulating the minds of the African. The white man puts billions of dollars into manipulating the minds of the African because he's getting trillions of dollars from Africa for doing so. The white man is inherently greedy. Trust me, if he wasn't making trillions, he would have put so much money in it. And everything we say, we can rise from it once we have an understanding of why we're being programmed. The white man did something years ago. They thoroughly studied the African, and they said to look for our strengths and look for our weaknesses. They said once we find our weakness, to inherently exploit it. When they find our strengths, to attack it. They found that the Africans are very spiritual, very intuitive. And Africans says we function when we're emotional, And we function on saying, oh, I perceive this, I believe this, and we defend what we feel. When the white man is studying this doctrine. So when you come pushing it, showing the people this doctrine, you would get a lot of rebuttals. I feel this way. Well, I see it this way. And I run into that quite a bit. I feel, I remove I from it. There is a doctrine, and we're imprisoned under that doctrine. And they have to, because they need Africa, not just today, they need Africa in the future. There's no future without Africa's natural resources. And then when we talk about reducing the population, Africa's always been the focus. Prince Charles gave a speech last year, and he's talking about the overpopulation in Africa, and talking about how the wildlife are losing grounds, the lions are losing grounds because of too many people. So we see that they're already creating the context to depopulate Africa. So when you see all the context, the white man propaganda, he creates. There's a term called manufactured consent. Okay, manufactured consent is when you create societal conditions that allow you to do what you want to do. Hitler's propagandist Joseph Goebbels used it against the Jews. They wanted to kill these Jews, eradicate the Jews. And I know the numbers are exaggerated because they write the histories. But these Jews were Caucasians. These Jews spoke German. These Jews were these people's neighbors. They knew them all their lives. So they started putting out propaganda, vilifying the Jews, demonizing the Jews, and describing the Jews as being everything that's wrong with the population. This allowed them to go inside and start pulling Jews from the house, and the neighbors condoning it. The white man uses his propaganda globally to manufacture the consent for what he does, to manufacture his mistreatment of his exploitation of Africa. And he has to do it, because if he doesn't do it, it's against his interests. In every government, although they profess equality, there is two governments. There's the public persona, and then there's the shadow government. The shadow government engages in many nefarious things under national interest that the world never learns about, the public doesn't learn about. And in each Western government, they are unrelentingly committed to the preservation of their white global dominance. And they need Africa's resources to maintain it. This scenario creates a situation where they have to exploit and manipulate Africans. They have to. They have thoroughly studied us. We must move among our emotions and understand that look at it as a science. You want to do something?
Yes.
Use propaganda. I'm gonna say one little short scenario. If I was sheriff of a town and I want guns, to buy new guns to my officers. Now I know if I go before the board, ask them more financing, they will say no. But if I create media propaganda, telling false stories that my men are being gunned down, and I put it in the media, then when I go and ask for support, it's okay, because I've manufactured societal consent for my agenda. The white society manufactures societal consent for their exploitation and mistreatment of Africans. We must understand the propaganda. He thoroughly studied it, and I'm just showing the facts of how he does it.
Yes, I think also that when you listen to the guy who sent the gentleman who sent in his comment about us moving on, I think this rises up many times. Yes. That this happened long time ago. Colonialism happened long time ago. Slavery happened long time ago. So let us move on and start building new societies. I think sometimes it stems from lack of understanding what really the problem is. Because most of the times people who are bringing up history is not that they are trying to bring up history for the sake of being victims, because we are trying to victimize ourselves. But if you do not understand the problem and the genesis of the problem, there's no way you can start solving that problem. Yeah. Yes, please, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes,
so if you do not understand the problem.
Okay, I wanted to say our time, I couldn't do much.
Hello? You're breaking up.
Okay, I was saying I'm cutting off, but let's just wrap up each in 1 minute. What can we do to unite our people so that we can develop Africa? Each in one.
Hello?
Yeah.
1 minute. I'll say 1 minute. The first thing we must do, that colonizing never stopped.
Yeah, we left with only 1 minute. So with only 5 minutes, so I will need each of you to just contribute to how we can unite our people to develop Africa. That's in 1 minute, less than a minute each. I can start with.
Hello?
Yes, we
Okay.
we can hear you.
What the brother was saying before we lost him, he was saying that, yes, we have a mindset where we said slavery is in the past, colonialism is in the past, move forward. That is a narrative that clearly benefits the white society. The truth is we have to recognize that colonizing never stopped and slavery never stopped. It merely became more mental. As long as they're controlling the information we receive, we're being socialized to think and benefit in ways that benefits the white society. We must acknowledge that in order to move forward, because it is the white man's greatest weapon. His greatest weapon against us is his ability to shape our thoughts and behaviors in ways that benefits him.
Yes, for me, I think that once we recognize that problem which we have, then it will be easier for us to take on the responsibility. Once we understand that our enemy who started slavery is the same enemy after slavery failed, started colonialism. And when colonialism failed, he started neo-colonialism, which we are fighting with today. It's the same person.
Yes.
So it is for me, it appears naive to say slavery happened a long time ago when the same people who started those problems are still here disturbing us. So then we can take on the responsibility of saying that this is the problem. How are we going to deal with it as a youth? Yeah. We as African youth, how are we going to deal with it? Now we have to put all options on the table, whether it is violence, whether it is non-violence. These are some of the things which people don't want to hear, of course, when you talk about these things. But we have to put all options on the table. When we have realized that this is our enemy, then put the options on the table. Non-violence and violence, put them on the table and say, this is what we are going to test. Okay, we are going to start with non-violence. What are we going to do? Then we move forward. So for me, what I'm working on as myself and the groups I'm attached to is to mobilize all the Pan-African groups, and we try to come together, the people who are concerned about Africa and its situation. We want to come together and start push a plan which is called the Rapid Africa Plan, which was developed by a gentleman from Zimbabwe. And we want to push this plan, but we need the youth on board to support the plan. And we need all the other people to support the plan. So we have to come together and start moving forward. So if it is removing the tools which the oppressors are using, if it is the existing governments, we have to agree that it is our responsibility to remove them. I know this sounds, very radical. Whenever you talk of removing governments, people are terrified and they say, "Whoa, how is this going to happen?" But if this is responsibility, this is the responsibility which has been given to us, then we have to sit down and face it. Okay, so I really hate people when they try to brush off, and try to come up with simplistic ideas. Oh, it has happened in the long time. Okay, so what is the solution? So I would appreciate that if someone says slavery happened in the long time, colonialism happened long time ago. What is your solution? Are you adding another solution? So let the person add a solution on that statement. But as far as I'm concerned, we have to appreciate the problem. It is an appreciation of looking at slavery and colonialism, is appreciation of the problem and the task ahead, so that we can craft, practical solutions to our enemies. We understand how our enemies playing, and then we get solutions from there. Thank you very much, Mother.
Okay, George, quickly.
Go ahead, George. Go ahead.
George, you can go on, please. Hey, I said so.
Ajamu first.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, mine's real short. Basically, to move Africa forward, you got to change your mindset, individual mindsets. 3 lies become a truth. 3 lies become a truth. Never, ever forget or forsake your culture or your history, or you cannot stand in the future. I'm done.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
I'm a quote. I'm gonna get.
And mine is.
I got
mine is also very short.
Okay.
We as the youth here in America, we know that things have been done to us. We know, even like it's to the point where subconsciously we're being so much manipulated that it's bleeding into the conscious forefront. We know what's going on to us. Give us something to step forward into. That's why I prefer to talk more about us rather than what has been done to us, because we feel the pain. We're living it every day. We need better to step into. Give us our original culture, feed it to us through a straw even, and we will find it and follow it because we feel it. And that's my point.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just want to appreciate you guys for being here. I think network was bad, but it is okay. I'll keep on bringing you here, guys, and I think that's for next year, 2021. We have more shows where we're gonna bring you. And I want Prince George. I want you to prepare for me some youth to come and talk how they feel, because I always feel like I'm still part of youth, but today I want to at least go up there, like us, the grown-ups. We really come with solutions and tell young people that this is how you should do things. So at some point, I want you to also come and share how you guys really feel, the way we are doing things, the way forward, and so that we can, find balance. The age gap. Sometimes if we are 10 to 20 years older, we might see things differently to somebody who is younger, and they might not understand why you tell me to read this book, whereas I want my PlayStation 4 or 5 and stuff like that. So we will need you. We need all of you guys. Yes. So
Yes,
thank you so much.
And I have gratitude for the difference. And I'm here to help bridge the chasm, because I see from my side and I see fully the other side, the older side, because we're all one side. So let me not even say other side. I see it. I'm here to help bridge the chasm, and I'd like to have more opportunity to share my side so we can bridge that chasm as a group.
One love, my brother.
Yeah.
One love. One love.
Okay. One love is like this. We just do the peace. Have a lovely day, guys. I really appreciate you. Just waiting to be for the broadcast to end. It's been a long day.
I love you all. I want you to know I love you all. I love you. I love anyone. I love you.
Thank you.
As always.
That's
always.
Okay, picture.
Okay, remove it from there. Remove. Okay.
All right.